俺はもうみんなと一緒にはいられない。
In all my years of watching anime, I have very rarely felt the same hype that I do for this show, which is why I want to put JJK as the first anime in a new series I plan to continue, called Anime That I Think Will Define 2026. This is my personal picks for what I believe will stand out within the year and really define what could be a groundbreaking year for anime. I wanted to start with the obvious show, and something that I think everybody can see coming, especially if you've read the manga, with how good this season is likely to be. Releasing January 8th, and with the first 2 episodes actually already out in cinemas, JJK Season 3 is going to most likely cover the Culling game arc of the manga. The season will be split into 2 parts and have between 23 to 26 episodes, covering the chapters between likely 137 until around about 210 or 220. The Culling Games is to some the best arc in JJK and to others widely overrated. I think it's the most contentious arc within JJK for how much it divides people's opinions, and from what I've seen online in the anime community, if it is better than the Shibuya arc. It also now has to compete with shows such as Hell's Paradise Season 2 and the recent Chainsaw Man film. The competition for the shonen genre is arguably only getting better, and this means the show will have to stand out, and I believe it will. We left off from the previous season with Yuji meeting Yuki and Kenjaku escaping with Gojo sealed, and this leaves Yuji in a predicament as shown by the trailer to Season 3, where he's being hunted down by sorcerers to be executed. The trailer also reveals that Yuta Kotsu will be coming back as shown in JJK 0, and will likely be one of the main characters of this season within the Culling game. And now with Mekamaru, Mahito and the Disaster Curses all being left behind, it leaves a spot for Kenjaku to fill as the main villain of this season, along with Sukuna. This is a strange dynamic because in previous seasons, the Disaster Curses were always the main focal point, whereas Kenjaku was this villain kind of plotting on the sides, just waiting for the right moment to attack. But with Mahito gone especially, it now feels as if JJK is kind of entering its main phase for the story. And with the likes of Gojo being sealed and Todo being so heavily injured within Season 2, a lot of the main characters from the previous seasons will now be taken out, and we will be left with people who haven't really been shown as much, like Yuta. And I understand why this is decisive for some. Lots of people like myself really love Todo and really loved Gojo as characters, but I think it's a change that is quite welcome, bringing back someone like Yuta as well from JJK 0, as the dynamic between them and Yuji will certainly be interesting within the season. Chozo is also playing a prominent role within the trailer, along with Yuki, Yuto, Naoya, Maki. This feels like a lot of side characters who weren't given proper time within the previous season now coming into the forefront, so I think Yuji will have a lot less screen time within this season, which I'm not sure how that will play out if that is the case. I think a lot of the time people have real attachments to the main characters, but something that JJK does so well is really have side characters that are quite enjoyable to watch. Characters like Chozo and Yuki are lesser known by the anime fan base. And now I am someone who has read the manga, I finished JJK, so I want to pre-warn this with some minor spoilers, and then I'll get into more major spoilers as the video goes on. So beginning with why I think this anime will be so good and maybe even better than Shibuya, I want to start with the characters that will be introduced. As good as I think Season 2 was, I believe something it maybe lacked in comparison to the Culling game arc is less time with Yuji and more time with these other characters for us to care more about other people other than just the protagonist. Shibuya is amazing, and I have very little bad things to say about it, but the Culling games and what it does so well is take Yuji out of the picture and introduce amazing characters like Higuruma, like Hikari, like Kashimo, even the likes of Naoya, that really open the world of Jujutsu Kaisen and make the story feel like more than just Yuji Itadori. Because all of Season 2 is kind of Yuji versus Mahito, and of course there is a lot else going on within it, but the crux and what makes it so good is Mahito versus Yuji. But with Mahito now out of the picture, it kind of means that what was Yuji's biggest antagonist has been completely taken out of the game. So by having him out and allowing other characters to flourish, it means that Season 3 has such a variety of amazing fights and high moments within the arc itself. And the moments where Yuji is brought into the season, like with the introduction of Higuruma, are amazing in themselves. And that's another comparison point to the previous seasons. It is the amount of fights that happen within this arc are comparable to the likes of the Shibuya instant fights. Yuji vs Mahito is such a hard fight to live up to, and the hype that went into it, but I do believe high points such as Hikari versus Kashimo and Yuki and Chozo vs Kenjaku will be incredible once animated. In particular, I think Yuta in the Sendai Colony Showdown will be a real high point of the season, even though it's only really at the midpoint, because you get so much more time with Yuta as a character. And I'm leaning more towards the end, and what I think will be another amazing point of this season. You have the reveal of Meguna, Sukuna and Megumi as one, and this obviously being the prelude to Gojo vs Sukuna, which I don't think Gojo will be unsealed in this season. I don't see how that fits, unfortunately, into the 23 episodes, if it is 23. Maybe if it's 26 this could happen, but it feels like it's certainly cutting it short, and there's a lot that happens in between that. I think a really good place to start season 4 would be at Gojo being unsealed, so I feel like it's unlikely that starts in season 3. But even still, I think this season will be incredible. I think it will have so many hype moments. I think it's a lot less emotional than season 2 was at its high points, but I think what it offers more is hype within those fights itself. JJK is at a point now where we're so many chapters into the series going into the 3rd season that you don't really need to build on emotions, as people already care a lot for these characters. So I think focusing on the fights will really deliver the highest quality anime that really fans could ask for. But there is actually a stumbling block that I'd like to mention going into this season, and something that I think will divide fans. And obviously this is a major spoiler warning, so please go off this video if you don't want a major spoiler for what is likely the end of season 3. But the death of Yuki when fighting Kenjaku was a very, very contentious point within the manga itself. And anime fans are normally a lot louder than manga fans. So I could see this being a really difficult point of the anime where some people get really upset. A lot of people already really like Yuki in the anime and don't know what happens next. So I think this will be a very contentious point of the series, and something that Mappa will have to do better than the manga did. Also, with Yuji being out for so much of this season and Yuta kind of becoming the main character at points, that could see some divide within the fandom themselves. Lots of people really like Yuta. Me personally, I think he's an amazing protagonist, but lots of people equally much prefer Yuji, and I can see both sides of the coin. I think Yuji is much more of a typical protagonist than Yuta, and is much more popular because of the previous 2 seasons and how much it's built up with the anime fandom. And going back to my previous point, I think a lot of people will find it strange not to have characters like Gojo, Todo, even Nobara around anymore. It's something new to JJK, and I think it will get very mixed responses within people who only know the anime, because it's not what they're used to within the series. But why I think this season is so good, and maybe arguably better than season 2, is that the characters that you're left with are just so good that I think it does make up for the lack of those previously stated characters. On top of this, I haven't even spoken about Maki's awakening and how she almost becomes one of the main protagonists within the series. Her fight with Naoya and Curse Naoya is incredible, and seeing those get animated I think will really bring people back to the season. So overall, I do think this season will be great for JJK. I do think there is more stumbling blocks than in the previous season because it's taking more risks than season 2 did. Season 2 expanded on season 1 and just brought everything that was alluded to the forefront. But season 3 is much more about the characters that we haven't seen as much. The like of Kenjaku and the likes of Yuta really becoming the antagonists and protagonists of this story for this arc. I can't say confidently that I prefer this season to Shibuya, but what I can say is that I still think it's absolutely amazing. And if animated and treated with the care that Mappa put into season 2, I think the hype moments of this could really, really define it within 2026. But yeah, this is probably the easiest to pick anime to define 2026, but it's one that I think I should have said first just to kind of get it out of the way, because it will obviously be quite amazing. Mappa has been delivering on pretty much every project they've been a part of, so I only see this really going one way. But what I'm actually more interested in than this is how other anime will compare to Jujutsu Kaisen, now that it's almost seen as the top dog of anime besides the likes of Demon Slayer and maybe Chainsaw Man. Yeah, but thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please make sure to like and subscribe. I don't normally like asking for that because I think it's just a bit weird, but I'm still kind of getting used to this, but I do really appreciate the support on recent videos, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.